Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had a chance to catch back up with my friend Andrew Johnson. He is the CEO of ShelfAware VMI. This is a really interesting technology, and we had our first conversation back in 2020, and it definitely piqued my interest. RFID had been kind of this weird idea that we could track all these different things in, the supply chain. And it really didn't feel practical. It was expensive. It was clunky. Nobody really knew what to do with it. So I felt like it kind of died on the vine. Well, again, a few years ago, I ran across Andrew and he kind of reinvigorated my interest in this. And he's developed a solution that is highly economical, built for small to medium distributors. Large distributors obviously can jump on this, but this was something that, really could kind of level the playing field for the smaller distributors who wanted to do managed stock rooms or, VMI in a technical sense, with these manufacturing facilities or these end users. They wanted to, have that stock on hand. And so this is a really exciting idea. He came on and we talked about, where they have been going with the solution, how they're bringing distributors together to satisfy a larger end user, so like a large manufacturer, for example. And now he's jumping into how do I look at the payment side of this and the expense associated with managing money between these two partners in the supply chain and using blockchain technology and all these very fancy technology solutions way above my head, but at least he brings it down to where maybe I can understand it. Anyway, just a pleasure catching back up with him and figuring out where they're going next. I really hope you all enjoy our conversation. This episode of Distribution Talk is sponsored by InSQL Distribution Software. InSQL is a fully functional distribution-based software package. I only recommend software packages that were purpose-built to serve distribution. And these folks do it very well at a price point many smaller distributors can afford. Economy doesn't mean compromise. This company is on the cutting edge of distribution-friendly applications like VMI on mobile devices, mobile signature capture, mobile CRM, warehouse management software, and e-commerce development. If you're ready to step up to a fully loaded, scalable distribution package at an affordable price, look no further than InSQL Distribution Software at www.insql.com. That's INXSQL.com. Well, hey, Andrew, welcome back to Distribution Talk. It's been a number of years, 3 years since you and I last visited on here, and probably a whole lot of different things have changed. So why don't you give us a little history, if you wouldn't mind?
Sure, I will. Yeah, well, this will be a really quick catch up, but we'll talk about the genesis. First, to just start by thanking you for letting me back on to give
you bet.
Your listeners an update on where we're at, because we are that inventory supply chain company that's kind of on the bleeding edge. And hopefully we try and do innovative, great things and not just awful things. But on that bleeding edge, it gets a little bit messy. So an update for everybody would be fun. But in the beginning, we were honestly just a bunch of brothers operating a small family distribution business, which I know you can relate with.
Mm-hmm.
And we were looking to add value into our customers' relationships by helping them track their on-site inventory. This has been called all sorts of things, from like vendor managed inventories to managed inventory cages or on-site inventory management, whatever you want to call it. We were mildly interested in it, but we weren't interested in it if it involved us hiring a lot more people, putting them in vehicles, driving around to on-site physical check inventory with human eyeballs. And that would eventually include branch locations. And so we looked at this goes all the way back to 2015 with a new set of eyes and said, how can we build a better remote inventory management system, leveraging modern technology, but still appreciates the landscape that we're innovating in? And when I say that's a very key piece to what we did. We were keeping the practical in mind. And often you'll have technology companies enter the industrial manufacturing space and bring all that's high tech and sexy and awesome and cool, but it's really not practical for the realities of the industrial manufacturing space. And so we tried to do all of this in 15, and we rolled out a fairly practical, simplistic inventory tracking solution that leverages an older technology that people have heard a lot about through the years called RFID. So we're using radio frequency identification. These are proximity read scans, so we don't have to be close to the reader. They're non-visual. It is not a barcode, not a barcode. But
Right.
we take these RFID tags, we attach them to product packages at the time of shipping, and they ship from the supplier's location with smart packaging. And then ShelfAware, facilitates a piece of RFID hardware at the customer's facility, usually a manufacturing complex, that physically tracks the movement of these parts off the shelf. So thus we called it ShelfAware.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, again, looking at this and remembering and actually getting a chance to physically see this. I went out, you and I met, was it in Detroit? Where did
I
we
think it was
meet
in
with
Detroit.
I think
Detroit
it was
or
in
Chicago.
Detroit. Yeah. And the gentleman, we looked at it, and I have the labels. Actually, I still have all those labels that you gave me, and just seeing how that really works. I mean, it's a fascinating idea, especially because not wanting to apply labor. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest hangups is, and this is where I get a little frustrated with some of the clients I've worked with over the years, is having your very expensive field sales personnel going and physically counting these bins and creating an order, or actually physically coming back, creating an order, then you got to go back out and replenish these bins. Very expensive. And debatable whether you actually are making money on that transaction or not.
It is debatable. It's also very difficult to scale. And
It
my
is.
brothers and I are very ambitious, and we wanted to compete with the big guys, but we felt like we couldn't compete with the big guys. And when I say big guys, just think like industrial distribution, big 50 list. These are all the companies I like to pick on that are on that list.
Sure.
And it would, like, top of that list would be like Worth, Fastenal, Granger, IBT. And I'm just picking on these folks because they're giant, and we all want to, if you're aggressive and you want to grow, you want to be like them in some way. You want to be big. The reality of that is, to scale a managed inventory service like this, you not only need people, you need a physical presence, and branch locations are almost a necessity. So we were trying to avoid people and branch location. It's that combination that really prevents small independent suppliers from representing large customers across the country now, because it's such a big country. You just have to appreciate how large America is. And so that was the big piece of the puzzle. If we could leverage the internet, this novel thing, to manage the inventory with technology that's practical and cheap and remotely deployed, and do it all over the internet, we could avoid a network of people and branch locations. That would put us in a position to compete in a very, very differentiated, specialized way.
I think that people have this vision that you physically have to take the product and replenish these shelves. You take the inventory. And I think it's been, your experience has been that you actually don't have to do that, that if the technology and if the application is attractive enough to that large consumer of it, be it a manufacturing facility, tends to be the best example. If it's attractive enough to them and they can see themselves saving money doing this and not having downtime waiting for things, then they'll stock the shelf for you.
Yes.
And I think that's a huge mental leap for people. They don't understand that they can get away with this.
It is a big mental leap. I struggle because what we're doing at this point, and we'll get to it at the end of this really quick conversation, but we've taken a lot of mental leaps.
Yeah.
And if you talk to me over a couple beers, anybody that has done that before will know that I tend to just, in my mind, I've taken this really far. I've made dozens of mental leaps to kind of try and cast a vision for the future of what industrial supply looks like when it's collaborative and it's transparent and it's visible and it's efficient. And all of these leaps I've made are an attempt to try and make the independent, specialized distributor competitive with the big guys. But it does get tricky because we're leaping over a lot of premisconceptions. And one of those is the consumer will want the physical supplier representative there to stock the product, to manage the product. But again, we can track the consumption of it using technology. But the second thing we did when we invented this thing was we knew we really wanted to make it a platform. And so it is a web-based software application that really stands between and independent of the ERP of the supplier and the MRP of the consumer. And the advantage there is we can cast a lot of visibility and we can drive a lot of value by giving data to both supplier and consumer, making it transparent and visible in the web-based application. So if you start to spell out some of these features and benefits to the consumer, they will quickly raise their hand and volunteer to physically stock the product. And it just makes more sense because they employ human beings that are physically present at the factory every day. They don't have to transport them there. They're naturally there to do other functionalities. And so with the Shelfware platform, you get this incredible collaboration between supplier and consumer. That was like the aha moment for us, was all that data that now lives between supplier and consumer, and they start collaborating. And then where it's gone from there, multiple mental leaps. What was the next big leap for us was, hey, would a supplier cooperate with another supplier on this platform
Right.
and work alongside each other, stay in their lanes? So if you're really good at supplying fasteners and I'm really good at supplying electrical components, and we both collectively want to supply a big consumer, like, I don't know, you could pick on anybody, but like a John Deere, why not? Why couldn't we do that together? I want to sell more fasteners. You want to sell more fasteners. I want to sell more electronics. We both want to sell at John Deere. This platform can automate both of our supply chains and benefit John Deere greatly. So that was when we talked in 2020, the first time, we were just starting that. And we call that now, it's fairly mature, and we're seeing tons of positive benefits from this collaborative supplier network. We call it cloud sourcing. And it is this ability of ShelfAware equipped suppliers to work with each other and collectively supply large consumers a variety of product across multiple product verticals, all with one set of rules on one web-based application with one data stream. And we're going to use a few buzzwords today, but in this context, it's not a buzzword. It is reality. Yeah. We are probably, I think, unless somebody else can prove otherwise, we are the industrial distribution's first true omni-channel outside of an industrial Big 50 company. We can make a collective of independent suppliers operate as an omni-channel to large consumers, meaning a singular data stream, singular set of rules, a singular supply network delivered to the door of a consumer and then replenished automatically.
It's interesting. It's very similar to, years ago, integrated supply became, kind of that big buzzword in the industrial supply thing. And people would try to get together and do this, try to collaborate and try to trust each other a little bit, help each other out, and ultimately take care of a large consumer. Again, let's just keep using John Deere as an example, and so these partnerships would have to be forged and put together. Now, and really what you're just saying is, let's just use this technology platform to be that, that agreement and that partner, that bridge between the group of them. And now, instead of just having your little niche into John Deere, for example, let's say that you're selling fasteners, you're a bolt house or whatnot, threaded fastener house. You get this piece, but then that's the only thing on ShelfAware. Everything else must be done in traditional. Man, that doesn't make any sense. If you are on the factory floor, you're like, well, wait a minute, why can't we do all the other components, the O-rings, whatever you would put inside of this, these products? Yeah, the tractor itself. And so I think what you're saying is that you're really talking about grabbing different types of components, bearings, for example, or again, I'm struggling to figure out all the things that go into a tractor.
Yeah, so I'll spell it out for you.
Sure.
We'll talk in terms of reality. So
okay. Yeah.
We've done this. And so forget John Deere for a second. We have a gearbox manufacturer. Okay. And that gearbox manufacturer, if you're not familiar with gearboxes, it's a housing, usually a casting. Inside the casting is a very complex network of, these are fluid power gearboxes. So a very complex network of fluid control devices and gears and sprockets and fasteners and bearings and little metal bits and pieces, all highly engineered. Ideally, you source all of these engineered components with a specialist. You need somebody who really knows bearings, and you need somebody who really knows fasteners and has a lot of knowledge and competency on seals to make these highly engineered gearboxes work. So on the ShelfAware network, we have a gearbox manufacturer that has now sourced 4 supply chains. That's O-rings and seals, fluid conveyance like hose and fittings and adapters, fasteners, and then their end-of-line packaging materials. This would be packaging materials that they set the gearbox in to make sure it gets to their customer without getting damaged. And then they're adding right now bearings, spherical bearings, your traditional needle bearings, all highly engineered, highly customized, very complex supply chains. All of those supply chains are being delivered through the ShelfAware platform, same set of rules. They just the suppliers involved, 5 independent specialized suppliers,
Mm-hmm.
all comply with the same set of rules. They print and encode an RFID smart label at the time of shipping, slap it on their product. It could be a
Mm-hmm.
box, a bag, a crate, a tote, a pallet, and ship the materials to the consumer, the gearbox manufacturer. They sit on the shelf, effectively turning any shelving, pallet racking into a virtual vending machine, allows consumers, blue collar folks, who are tasked with not managing inventory, but producing gearboxes, to manage inventory by simply grabbing what they need and walking out of the area, whether that's a pallet rack or a huge, in this case, it's a fairly large, couple thousand square feet of inventory storage area where all of these suppliers are pushing stuff into. We have effectively automated roughly 80% of their purchased product all through one platform.
Yeah, so it's fascinating. I mean, really, it was a 1-to-1 originally, is really what you were
It
shooting
was,
for
yeah,
there, and now it's like many to one.
many to one.
Yeah, and I think that's fascinating. And again, because they're all standardized on the same platform,
Uh-huh.
then the consumer doesn't have to think as hard. They don't have to think about, well, what's the application look like for my bearing person? What's my application look like for the packaging person or
Mhm,
packaging supplier, et cetera.
mhm,
So
mhm.
and just visually, all of these are going into this. Is it caged? Is it, at least cordoned off of some way?
There's
And
actually, it's grown so much. There's actually multiple areas in this large factory that are
okay.
considered smart inventory zones. One of them is caged.
Mm-hmm.
One of them's just kind of wide open and sits in a big mezzanine full of stuff. And it's limited access, meaning there's only like one point of entry because it's a mezzanine, so you got to walk up these stairs. But
Mm-hmm.
it can be pretty free flowing. It doesn't have to be caged. There's
Mm-hmm.
really not a lot of rules that we apply to make the shelfware system work. It's smart labels that turn these areas into virtual vending machines. So there's not a lot of investment that the supplier or the consumer have to make.
Mm-hmm.
And then the technology we're using is it's cool, it's magical, provides that magical user interface, but it's not expensive. It's readily available. We use Zebra hardware, so Zebra RFID printers and hardware, so you can buy them from anybody. We've modified them with custom software, but we make that available to you, the supplier, through our license agreement. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a licensed platform, and that's our business model. Is we license it to suppliers. We're looking to equip, educate, and inspire industrial, independent, specialized suppliers to
Mm-hmm.
operate on a more automated supply network. And once we do that, equip, inspire, and educate, they have a lot of autonomy. They can really take the Shelfware platform wherever they want. That's taken us to a lot of different parts of the world. We're not even in the U.S. anymore. We're all over the U.S. now, in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
We can go anywhere you have internet and power within reason. I mean, kind of hard to get to, like, I don't know, a little island in the Pacific or something, but
You could give it a
we
shot.
can,
Yeah.
yeah, we can give it a shot. I
Yeah.
would. I'd try anything.
Yeah.
And we've expanded it now to like different industries beyond just manufacturing, now into like the repair industry. The construction industry is a better growing fit for us.
Sure.
And we've come up with new features based on the demands of the supplier and the consumer. So now that it's getting installed everywhere all the time, we get all sorts of feedback. Hey, the platform could do this because you have an RFID tag attached to each package quantity.
Mm-hmm.
Could we track and trace stuff? Could we push documentation when the product's scanned out? Could that deliver pedigree documentation like specifications, material data sheets, to
Mm-hmm.
quality control, to assembly? Could we push assembly drawings to people based on what they physically walk away with? Sure, we can. We can do all of those things. So we're building functionality on top of the basic functionality, which is ShelfAware will not stock you out of product.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of our core mission.
Yeah.
We don't want to
Yeah.
run the consumer out of these little bits and pieces. And if we've achieved that, we can do that very, very efficiently and effectively. Now, what else can we do? We can do, I mentioned track and trace, but we can do truck tracking inventory. So we can actually track truck inventory. So if you have like HVAC, plumbing supply trucks that are
Right.
out on job sites,
Yeah.
they come back every night and they've, eaten out of the truck all these little bits and pieces for their jobs all day long. We can take a quick inventory audit with a handheld RFID scanner in seconds, tell you what's in the truck, and then write up a supply order, or it doesn't write it up, it pulls it out of the cloud and pushes that supply order out of like a main supply warehouse into the truck bound inventory.
Mm-hmm.
We could deploy ShelfAware. We've done this. Actually, we have one in Mexico running on a 3G card from like Mexico Boost Wireless. I don't even know where we got the 3G card from, but we can run our hardware, check out inventory hardware on a 3G mobile card. And you could run that in a Connex box on a job site.
See, that's what I love. I'm excited about. I know, because
The
that's where I
construction
grew up in.
industry. Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in that, and that's what
Mhm.
I see. But okay, before we get there though, because I do want to dive into that for a moment. Going back, just again, the data collection device. I mean,
Yeah.
so, I'm in a factory, I'm in this in multiple places, obviously. They just pass it over this, what used to be large, look like a potting bench. Now it's
Yeah.
quite a
Yep.
bit more attractive now. It's
Thank you.
smaller, it's more
It's fine.
compact, and refined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's effectively still just a workbench, but
Mm-hmm.
you take a little, we call it checkout station, but it's a physical little table.
Yeah.
They're networkable, they're plug and play. Intentionally, they don't have a mouse, a keyboard, or any screens. They're really, really simplistic because we knew that we had to provide like a magical user experience for the blue collar folks who primarily don't they don't want to concern themselves with inventory management and necessarily shouldn't have to in some of these scenarios. They just want to be able to grab whatever they need and get back to work and build
Mm-hmm.
quality products and build them fast. And so, if we were going to make a system for the consumer that would be adopted long term successfully and effectively, it had to be magical. So, the radio frequency tags give us the ability to set these stations, which are inexpensive and very effective at
Mm-hmm.
gaining these scans, set numerous stations in a large factory format, and these become choke points for inventory management. And really, we provide like a 30-second training video to the blue collar folks and say, grab anything you want out of this area. Walk past this station, light's going to blink. There's a little flashy light, or sometimes a little top
Mm-hmm.
lights up. Kind of depends on what make and model and flavor you go with. But the whole thing will blink and light up. And you walk away, and you can have a high level of confidence that we scanned everything in that tote. You could have 40 packages of different product from different product verticals from different suppliers. You could have a whole cart full of boxes, crates, totes, and we're going to scan everything you walked away with.
It's fascinating looking at this. And God, I remember back in 2020, you and I talked a little bit about when Amazon had that vision of the stores. You remember the stores, and it kind of came out at the same time you were launching your gig.
Yeah,
And
Amazon's just walk out. It's everywhere now.
yeah.
Kansas City has a brand new airport. I'm based out of Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
In the brand new airport, they have a system from Amazon. Just walk out. Very, very similar. You just walk in, grab whatever you want, and walk away.
Fantastic. I mean, and again, okay, so taking that leap over to the Connex box, there's no reason why you couldn't have a scanner at that exit of the Connex box, and it'd say, okay, whatever, it knew what you took out.
Yes.
The
Yes.
system knows what you took out.
Exactly. No reason we can't do it. The only reason we haven't is because nobody's asked us to. So we can only work with folks that are ready, prepared to make that mental
Mm-hmm.
leap. And I think since I've talked to you in 2020, we've had a lot of success licensing the platform to independent specialized distributors. But the personality of that distributor we're licensing the platform to tends to be, well, the demographics are younger, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
The folks are really ready to shake things up. Maybe out of a sense of desperation, they feel like they're getting hemmed in their own market and they are losing their competitive advantages. Maybe it's the growing labor cost or the actual inability to find labor, but there's some sort of pain point that's culminating in these folks from these distribution companies calling us up and saying, okay, we have to have this. We have to have it tomorrow. And my answer is great. How fast do you want to move? Because we can move as fast as you want to move.
Mm-hmm.
We're really, really, really good at equipping, educating, and inspiring your team to run with this platform. And it's really not complex, and you don't have to shell out a lot of money. You can move as fast as you want. So,
yeah, I think just the application that comes to mind is data centers tend to be located away from population centers.
mm-hmm.
So these large data centers, and I'm very familiar with one because there's a couple of them, within, 30 minutes from where I live,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a pain for the suppliers. You have, electrical contractors, you have different contractors that have now established offices there, but it's
Mm-hmm.
a pain for the, the supplier network because now you got to put up a Quonset hut type of, a really,
Mm-hmm.
small representative inventory. You have to staff it, all
Mm-hmm.
the hassles that go with that. So I see a Connex box or some sort of remote application being very, very attractive. And, there's a heck of a lot of power and there's a heck of a lot of, bandwidth to jump on to make this work. And it'd be great if somebody would jump on this.
Yeah. Oh, we are ready and we are waiting. We have a great team. We have a large team of developers. We're always working on new functionality and solutions. We do have a tendency for people to walk up and start to interact with us and deploy ShelfAware one or two times, and then find it so effective that they ask us, "Hey, can you manage our warehouse? Our core stocking inventory?"
Yes.
And unfortunately, I'm about to tell you lots of crazy cool things today and blow a lot of minds, but I will not be blowing anybody's minds when it comes to WMS because it's a whole nother Pandora's box. And we've cracked it briefly, and then we got terrified by what was inside. So we're staying very committed to our mission of automating remotely deployed inventories on behalf of suppliers that work more closely with their customers. And we're kind of this, we see ourselves as this third party. We stand a visible, transparent third party between suppliers and consumers. That's our role. That's what we're really good at. We're purpose built for that. We're very good at that, and we'll do anything inside that like middle piece. I mean, anything, any functionality, any vision you can spell out, we'll try it. And we have a lot of flexibility to do just about anything. But as long as it resides between supplier and consumer, that's where we'll live.
And I think that's smart, actually. I remember when you and I started talking, I did have different distributors saying, hey, well, can we do this? Can we have it count my inventory and stuff? And I think to your point, staying in your lane is what is allowing you to innovate in your lane. If you spread too far and you try to, again, become a WMS or something, some other iteration. ERP. Yeah, exactly. It's going to get too confusing. I mean, it's just going to, and you're going to have to throw a lot of resources at it, and you're going to deviate from the direction you're going, which is simply, making it easier, from, two pieces of the supply chain. Yeah. That's really it. You're just trying to make it easier to, for those two to work together.
Yeah, yeah. And you've heard the term, vertical integration.
Yeah.
It is just this whole concept of like, as a company, ShelfAware is going to be vertically integrated between supplier and consumer. So we'll be able to do everything in that suite of functionality that resides between supplier and consumer. And we, if I kind of like backed it up just a little bit, back in 2015, I guess put it on a timeline, maybe it would be easier. From 2015 to 2019, we were focused on our phase one, which was just automating physical inventory management, gracefully and efficiently, effectively managing remotely deployed inventories with RFID smart labels. Boom, we did that. Then when I was talking to you for the very first time in 2020, we were on the cusp of licensing the system to a variety of industrial suppliers so they could work collectively on this platform to supply large consumers. We eventually came up with a term for that called cloud sourcing. And it's this concept that describes that collaborative supply model. We saw that kind of like as a phase two. What we're working on now is another vertical piece of this puzzle. So we're building it a little higher and higher. So phase three, kind of stack that on top of phase one and phase two. Now that we've established a trusted physical supply network, and now we've made it available to a host of physical suppliers that represent a broad representation of the industrial supply market, we are fairly confident, and this is a big announcement, fairly confident on the Jason Bader show here, distribution, we can achieve phase three, which is like another buzzword here, but we think we can automate the financial documents of physical supply chains that would include like packing lists and sales orders and purchase orders and vouched invoices, culminating in a payment from consumer back to supplier for a physical delivery of goods. And we can do that with a financial technology called blockchain. And I'm happy to elaborate on what that might look like. But the effects of this would be a vast reduction in the need for accounts receivable and accounts payable time to verify what was physically shipped, and then all the transactional pieces that go between the physical shipment and the actual payment in a B2B space. And there are a lot of touch points between what's physically shipped versus when you get paid in an industrial distribution marketplace.
Oh, I think in all vertical markets of distribution, I mean, the amount of people that touch any order, any transaction, I mean, it's astounding, and the amount of, labor dollars that are associated with just a simple transaction. I mean, that's why, cost of processing an order is extremely expensive in many cases. I mean, relatively speaking. Yeah. And I would say that, what you're talking about making that go away. Or just not necessarily go away, but
not go away.
Let something else handle that for you in a more efficient way.
frictionless, basically. So
Yes.
what we're talking about is making, definitely not going away. It's a necessary part of any business transaction. So if you have a long-term supplier of industrial products, which a lot of industrial relationships go on for decades. If it's
Decades
a
and
solid
decades. You're right.
supplier, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a complex engineered supply chain. It's hard. You really got to stick with these long-term partnerships, and they become very much a very important part of your company. And so these trusted long-term supply networks, you have to have the checks and balances between what physically is delivered and what is ultimately paid. And if they don't match up, there's obviously problems there. And there's all sorts of teams of people to assure both companies that what we bought is what we got and what we paid is what we should have paid.
Mm-hmm.
We feel like we can replace existing infrastructure with a visible, transparent, and auditable, accountable, secure piece of technology. I said blockchain earlier, but another way to describe it would be like an online ledger
Okay.
that deploys a smart contract.
Mm-hmm.
And think of the smart contract as just like your terms. How do I supply you fasteners? I'll sell you stuff, and then once you feel like you got what you bought, you'll pay me in net 30. So that means like at the end of 30 days, I hope to get all my money for what I shipped you. We deploy a smart contract that wraps up all the terms between this partnership, this long-term partnership between supplier and consumer. And then this smart contract basically executes all of the compliancy steps between what physically shipped with what is ultimately going to be paid for. And we can do that in an online, secure way that both parties can view at any time, can audit at any time, and can be assured is 100% accurate with this new financial technology.
Yeah, I think when people hear blockchain, I mean, the first thing they think about, is cryptocurrency. I mean, that's just first thing they think about. But that's not the limitation of blockchain. Blockchain is way bigger and there's more to it than that. And obviously, certainly outside of my wheelhouse. But
Yeah.
for a moment, would you mind just kind of sharing, why is it not just cryptocurrency? What else is this? Or what is blockchain?
Yeah, sure. I think cryptocurrency is what caught a lot of stole the air out of the room originally. And you see a lot of applications of a very fascinating technology in the cryptocurrency space. But if you back it up a ways, blockchain was always an actionable concept of an online ledger that could be verified by a set of independent peers or a nodes, independent network of computers, basically, that assure the parties involved that transactions are immutable, meaning they can't be changed. They're visible, they're transparent, and there's no funny business happening here. And so that's the basic concept of it. We spent years backing into different applications trying to get it to work. And I think initially, this is how most technology goes. That's how the RFID space went, frankly. For 20 years, people tried to apply radio frequency identification to a variety of applications and failed because it was too difficult to work with. It was too expensive. You couldn't make it retrofit existing industry norms and processes. And so it kind of just fell on its face. Blockchain, in the same way, has been talked about in a variety of ways, implemented in a few rare ways, and certainly not something that was on our radar when we started this. Because let me be clear, in 2015, we were just trying to solve what we thought is a small problem. Can we just get better visibility on what our customers are consuming? So as a supplier, we don't stock them out of product. That was like the initial. It has taken years of us deploying, being on that bleeding edge, living out there on what is like plausible with what's practical and what's possible, and then marrying all those things together with ideas, solutions, just trying to solve problems for customers. That has led us to this culmination. So it wasn't, again, like we took a concept, blockchain, and tried to stuff it down the throats of industrial supply chains. It's the reverse. We built the trusted supply network using a practical pre-existing technology, and then we've opened it up to a variety of industrial suppliers to build this network. And now we think that on top of those two things, we can build a third thing that makes both the previous two things even better, even more efficient, drives more value to the parties involved. And that's ultimately our goal, is to make the relationship between industrial suppliers and industrial consumers more efficient, more valuable, so that competitively the United States can reassure a lot of this American manufacturing and do it gracefully, do it well, and not drive the prices of these products to the consumer just completely through the roof. And we have to do it more efficiently with less labor and less involved handling of all of this little stuff. So Yeah, that was the kind of long answer, but it was a circuitous way that we came to this was building it first, deploying it, building it, making it better, and offering it to other people, and then ultimately coming to this conclusion that, hey, I think we've stumbled into a great use case for fascinating technology.
So what do you see as the biggest barriers? I mean, I know that there's in each iteration, there's been mental chasms to jump through and to help that,
Mhm.
the both the end user, the consumer, and the distributor kind of understand and trust and feel better about what's going on. I think
Yeah.
you're getting there with your phase two with the cloud sourcing, getting groups together and going after larger end user consumers,
Mhm.
and really pushing that through as a group.
Yeah.
What do you see as the big barriers for this phase or 3.0 here?
Yeah. 3.0. The barriers will be the same as they were for 1.0, 2.0, now 3.0. It's always kind of the new kid on the block. We're a new way of doing things, a new way of doing old practices, and we're really stepping into a lot of well-established relationships and a lot of well-established networks. So I think culturally we have to overcome some of the stagnation of some of these relationships and convince people that they should try something new because it's ultimately the future. So that's always going to be an issue with us is stepping into those existing relationships and adding value into the current conversation. That'll never go away. The really hard part about this 3.0 blockchain piece, I think, is just going to be the trust factor.
Mm-hmm.
Getting
Yeah.
companies, especially, to be a guinea pig on a trial that it eventually culminates in the movement of their money from their
Mm-hmm.
bank account to the supplier's bank account. It could be a little bit tricky. There could be some SEC regulatory environment that we have to possibly jump through some hoops on.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're in a unique position to do this. There's nobody else, Jason, in the industrial marketplace that's offering an inventory management solution that leverages a magical user-friendly technology like RFID
Mm-hmm.
and doing it in a platform way that would include anybody, and that's building this collaborative network of supply. So we have all of these unique things that allow us to actually have a conversation around effectively deploying blockchain.
Yeah. I mean, and the sensitivity obviously is the money. I mean, it's just the money moving back and forth between people. I mean, I think that's going to be the challenge. I will say, though, one of the things that I guess might be unique to you and your solution here, and you have a unique opportunity, is that you can kind of test it in house, if you will,
That's true.
because of your no, because and frankly, I think that it's a great proving ground, but it's also something that you can share with others. That hey, my family business is what we did. We do. And I am now putting 3.0 on my family business and all of the, shelf-aware relationships that I have. These relationships that we have built with these end users, and we have material flowing back and forth. They are trusting us to go to 3.0.
Mhm.
And here's, we have now got this working and it actually works. I can demonstrate that. Andrew, I think you're in a unique position, because there's a lot of software folks out there that, can make really cool, pretty things and they can make whiz bang things, but they don't have the distribution background. They
Yeah.
don't understand the practical side of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They understand the theoretical.
Right. Yeah. We are in this unique position because again, we weren't technology folks, we were distributors.
That's
And
right.
yeah, we went out seeking a technological solution to existing problems. So that background is our advantage.
Mm-hmm.
You better believe I'm going to leverage my family business. They're going to
You
be
should.
I'll drag them into the maybe unwilling participants in this
Yeah.
3.0 test. But I guess this also puts out like a call to every industrial consumer out there. If you're listening to this and you think you're an innovative company and you want to dabble in cutting edge technology in the financial technology space to really, really take the burden off of your accounts payable department, which is immense,
Yeah.
call me, find me, track me down, and be my guinea pig. I can approach with just about any supplier. So
Right.
pick your poison. What's your biggest supply pain point? Let's start there. I'll bring a supplier to the table and we'll test this thing in the real world. And then there's not a lot of that out there. Not a lot of folks and organizations willing to kind of put their money where their mouth is. But that's what we've done since 15 is put our money, our hard-earned money into building a solution that equips others to do what we've done. And we've benefited greatly from it. So we'll continue to roll those dice. And if any manufacturer out there is listening to this and wants to try it, find me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you said, you'll bring the suppliers. You can bring
Mm-hmm.
those folks to the table,
Mm-hmm.
but you can solve that problem there. And I can't help but wonder, what are the other platforms? I mean, thank you for coming on my show. I love this. This is a wonderful opportunity, but thinking about other platforms that you can get in front of people on the manufacturing side, because, I think you were alluding to, and it kind of seems right, is that it may be a pull thing versus a push, thing. Pull from that big consumer rather than a push from the supplier.
It could.
It
I've
could
always
be,
been
yeah.
surprised, as we're building this and putting it together, where the pressure would come from and where
Yeah.
the magnetism for some of these functionalities would come from. And usually, like, I get into a scenario on a functionality, and I think the supplier is going to drive it, and then this consumer hears about it, and they end up being the ones that hop in the driver's seat and really say, "Hey, this is a huge problem for us. We're going to push it down the road." So I never really know where it's going to come from when you're working in this kind of two-party solution.
Yeah.
But I'll kind of go with the flow at this point
Sure.
and take it from
Sure.
either party. So on that note, if there's whoever's listening to this podcast, it's probably majority distributors. But if there's industrial manufacturers, I'm not. I'm definitely the mad scientist in the lab. I don't get out of the lab much, and so
Very
I
true.
am not like super well connected
Yeah.
into a lot of these
Yeah.
established networks and relationships and
Yeah.
associations. And so if you are and you're listening and you want me to come present these ideas and concepts that are now in practice and give real life case studies of companies doing incredible things, I am more than willing to talk to these groups via a webinar or an in-person speaking engagement. I'm probably not as talented as the one and only Jason Bader, but I can deliver, a well thought out keynote that hopefully
Yeah.
inspires individuals and organizations to try something new. It's a very turbulent world right now. We're on the cusp of many, many global changes that are going to continue to have ripple effects through the American marketplace. And if you're ever going to consider to get off of what you've been doing for a long time and try something new, now's the time to do that. So I would love to talk to anybody and everybody in almost any setting about what we're doing at ShelfAware. And I can tell you real life case studies. We can, given the right context, we can talk about actual companies. I have fantastic partners that I work with from the supply side and from the consumer side, big companies that you would know. Iconic brand names are now adopting ShelfAware, and given the right context, we can talk about that too. So it's really cool stuff. It's actually happening. It's all over the country. And to your point, not enough people are talking about it. So how do we get them there? It's just got to reach out. You got to find
Just
me.
spreading the good word. And we'll definitely make sure that, all of the ways to get a hold of you are, listed in show notes and all of those kinds of things. But, let's give a plug to the website.
Sure.
Where can
Yeah,
they find it?
we just rolled out a new one, ShelfAware VMI, as in vendor managed inventory, ShelfAwareVMI.com. Brand new website, does a much better job of explaining what it is we do and who we are. The first website, it was kind of funny. It speaks to this like incremental innovation thing. The first website, honestly, we didn't know what we were really going to do. We knew what we wanted to do that day when we
Sure.
built the website, but then we didn't know what the next couple years were going to look like. So we've
Yeah.
reconfigured the website. It's very good. And then if you want to like actually get into our stories, go to YouTube and type in
Yeah.
ShelfAware, one word. You'll find our YouTube channel. Since our 2020 podcast, I've added a bunch of videos to it and continue to add some new video content that is kind of like straight from the front lines of supply chain innovation. I'm just recording myself on factory floors talking about how ShelfAware handles certain situations, how suppliers install the system, training videos on how to use the system. And so that's a great place to learn more. And then, frankly, you can just reach out to me through my website on the contact link and email me directly. That sends me an email. And I'm very good about getting back to you. So if you want to hit me up on a pitch for a trial or a conversation, that's the best place to start.
And I'm going to tell you right now for the audience, since I do know a little bit about Andrew's company and I've seen this and I've met some of his, the companies that use this is affordable. This is economical. You can do this. Everybody thinks that the big kids are the only ones who can afford this. And no, it is small entities can afford this. And so I'm just saying, I know
Oh
this
yeah,
is a
yeah.
shameless pitch. I probably shouldn't throw
No,
this
no,
out,
no.
but I'm
Nobody
saying,
should be scared to contact me
I
because it is
know it's
built for. I mean, my family business was not big when we built this thing. We were
right.
well, we built it. We were probably like 5 or 6 million, and maybe I don't know, a little bit more net
Yeah.
revenue.
Yeah.
20-person organization, and we were
Right.
just trying to make our own little world better. So it was built by tiny folks for tiny folks, and I have suppliers on the platform, Jason, that are operating on QuickBooks. They don't even have an ERP system, but they're deploying shelfware multiple times,
And
and they're like a 3-man operation. It's
yeah.
a small fastener supplier. Guy used to work for Fastenal, so he had like a VMI, vendor managed inventory background,
Mm-hmm.
and he got a hold of it, and he's just been installing it. And it's not a very sophisticated business. It's well run, but it is not very sophisticated, and he is not wealthy. He's gonna be because he's having tons of success deploying the Shelfware platform, but it is built for the little guy, and it's built to impact this market in a big way. So I have a kind of a saying. I've written an article or a couple blogs with the title "Small is the New Big Business" and how technology is leveling the playing field. So yeah, very good point.
Fantastic. All right, my man. Well, hey, thanks for coming on again. It's always great to kind of see where you're at and where you're going. And, I really want to see, I want to see that construction, that Connex
Yeah.
box, we're
Just
going to get
waiting for
you,
the phone
we're going
call.
to
Yeah.
get you in that Connex box one of these days, to
I'll get
have
in.
this work
We'll get
out.
in there. We'll do
Yeah.
it. We're ready for it. And I
Yeah.
just thank you for allowing me the chance to get out of the development side of things, out of the lab, out of the factory, and talk to you in this setting because I get so pent up with energy and just excited to kind of tell folks about what we're doing. So thank you for the opportunity to let me share folks our story and where we're at in that journey.
All right, my man. Well, my pleasure. Look forward to the next time our paths cross.
Yep. I'll see you out there.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Impostor Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.